Good morning, guys. You've been in Rocket. Yeah, that news was great. Obviously, I kind of tweeted about it yesterday. The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac don't have $200 billion to buy mortgage bonds, but they'll come up with some kind of creative way to make it happen. You like AEIS? It's possible. We've seen a lot of funky action recently where names, okay, so something like LITE is what initially caught my attention a few days ago, right? Where you just like get this nasty down move, right in here. And then all of a sudden on a pickup in volume, then all of a sudden the name rips right back. And then, it looks like it wants to break out. And then yesterday it totally dumps. You think about AEIS and it might, it might just rip right back because that's kind of the market we're in. But I don't like participating in heavy volatility. I prefer when things are trading a little quieter. I don't mind pullbacks, but I don't need them to be super violent. They're just not making things easy. They're just not making things easy to get re-involved. That doesn't mean that some things aren't working, right? Because I bought HAL yesterday, for instance, and that was fairly stress-free. Whoops, wrong HAL. I bought HAL yesterday, and that was fairly stress-free. So we'll see if that kind of holds up, right? You just pull back gently right into the unfalling volume, right into the 5-day. You take out a prior day high. And then as soon as we started consolidating in here and then pushing out, I was getting long. So it was a fairly, simple spot to get long. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So it just depends what you're buying, I guess. HUT over 60. Yeah, HUT looks pretty good. HUT looks like an interesting high type flag. Bohr looks coiled. This is a oil and gas stock, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Yeah, Bohr drilling. HUT better for an entry today than Cypher? Or Cypher better for an entry today than HUT? I mean, Cypher's still below the 50. HUT's blue sky territory. I don't know how that necessarily would be true, right? HUT's a nice little high type flag. I mean, look at this 60-minute chart. It's not bad. I mean, that's what makes trading so interesting, right? Beauty's in the eye of the beer holder, as I like to say. Oklo, I don't know. When you just throw me a ticker symbol, brother, I don't even know what you're thinking. Are you just asking for my opinion? I mean, Oklo with the big gap up, really nothing I could do about that. I'm definitely not chasing a gap up in Oklo. That's 100% sure, right? That puts the stock up about 60% in the last 6 days. So MBIS looking good through the 50-day. Yeah, MBIS is pretty interesting. It's got a bit of a low cheat setup. It's hanging out right there. Could TE be a buy despite the group? Let's find out really quickly. Electrical equipment and parts. SLDP. I mean, their sales had a big jump this last year. Thoughts on Rivian? I mean, I saw it yesterday. I just don't love this price action, man. Right? This price action just throws me off. There are people buying this thing yesterday over $20, and then it just completely rolls off. I've got Tesla, and the one I missed yesterday, it was on the night before's watch list. It just got just above my entry, but I wanted Ford. So between Ford and between Tesla, I've kind of got enough in the automotive space. I wouldn't necessarily need Rivian. Della's a UNR. Oh yeah, possible. The entry would have then in that case been yesterday. From a double top short sale to a possible UNR, I mean, that would be a pretty classic environment, right? Feels like it. Yeah, CCJ's already been getting a really nice lift too. Yeah, big old push on CCJ as well. Man, I wish I would have bought this damn CCJ down here. 93 to 110. Shame. You bought VSCO at 57.50. Yeah, I would be. We were already extended from the 50 simple moving average more than 4 times, so I'm happy that it worked for you. I mean, you bought this little bit of a breakout, so I guess that was smart for you to just kind of wait. But yeah, day 3, I would be, and today's day 4 for you. I mean, maybe you get another day push. That's not necessarily true. It's funny that you say that. My biggest winner last year on 3 trades was Oklo. 2 longs and a short was my biggest winner. Also, Reddit's not that low of ADR. I own Reddit. It's like a 5 ADR. I mean, if you mean like I don't own like 11 ADR stocks, you are correct. Yeah, you're definitely right about that. It just becomes too much of a choppy environment to kind of do that. Oklo VSAT. Oklo and Meta announce agreement to support development of a 1.2 gigawatt advanced nuclear power campus. VST, big ol' move. What the hell was the news on VST? Vistra shares are trading high after the company entered into a what? 20-year power purchase agreement to supply more than 2,600 megawatts of zero carbon nuclear energy to support Meta's operations. 20-year. Wow. Okay. I had about a 50% year last year. So, and I still plan on doing the end of year review, and I still got to do my December review. With that said, I still do also have a few open trades from December, and even from November. So, December might change. As of right now, it is a slightly red month, um, but that will end up changing. So we will see kind of what happens. I opened QUBT in December, and I opened XOM in December. So that will end up changing the results of December. I know some people kind of just, aggregate the results after they've closed the trade, which, might be something that I kind of start doing for the sake of these monthly recaps. What do I think of Argentinian stocks? BBAR, GGAL, SUPV. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty nice little looking chart there. And I think they'll all move with the ARGT ETF. The ETF looks even better, in my opinion. You sold CCJ at 93 at the end of 25. Oh, that's a little surprising. You mean back above the 50 simple moving average? It's a little surprising. ATEC offers a good entry here. This is a good entry. Look at price. Price is already expanded, right? What about this spot up here makes it a good entry? Because it is gapping up slightly, even though it's on no volume. But what about this? This is expansion. This is what you want to catch, right? So what about up here makes this a good entry? Not to say it can't going, not to say it can't get going, but like, what? Where's the consolidation? No, RKT is not a setup today. Gavin, RKT was a setup down here. Chime, much better. 100 times better. Right? You actually have a move up and now you have a consolidation. Million times better. What do I think of HUT? It's the leading data center, prior crypto name. So like if you're thinking Cypher, Iron, HUT, whoever the hell else is in that group, Core Scientific. I don't know if Riot would be considered one now. Bitfarms, CleanSpark, etc. HUT's the best of the bunch. You seem to always have some short trades even when the markets are bullish. What do you look at? Okay, so the easiest shorts are going to be stocks that have been showing relative weakness to the market when the market was going up, right? And Netflix is no exception, right? Netflix has made itself a pretty easy short this entire time. Netflix was acting fairly weak when the market was still going up, right? When did Netflix top? And Netflix didn't really get my attention until the earnings gap down. So lagging the market all of July, August, and September, you get an earnings gap down. You consolidate underneath the 200. You break below the 200. I get short on this little subtle gap down beneath the 200. I add more on the pop into the 20. I use the 20 as my stop. And then there you go. It just ended up rolling over for me. And why did it work? Because the market got a little bit choppy in December, right? And the market was consolidating, and stocks that are trying to go down, even when the market's going sideways, will just continue their initial trend. And not to mention that a lot of stocks had been acting poorly, from a Netflix to an Oracle. So what stocks are showing relative weakness while the market's going up? What are my top 2 recommended sources to stay on top of news? I mean, a trade exchange is fine. Benzinga could be fine. AXP's got a nice chart, but you're really trying to trade American Express. I mean, I already have one slow name in my portfolio. I don't think I want 2. IBKR, the financial stocks have been absolutely awesome. I don't know if I see a really good entry here. This is kind of just not tight. Random first pullback. Be almost easier to just wait for this breakout. And TBBK. I mean, this is a bank-related stock as well. So XLF has been acting awesome, and KRE even better. MSOS, interesting. Yeah, I saw Tilray gap up on earnings too yesterday, but I'm just going to leave this alone. I saw Celsius needs a little bit more work. If you want an energy drink company, I would look at Monster first. Right? Way stronger. Way, way, way stronger. You got stopped out of Rivian pretty quick yesterday. Yeah, that action kind of sucked. SEI, not bad. Energy related name. Yeah, I saw BW yesterday. BW, nice move yesterday. Unfortunately, it's a touch thin for me, so not one I can trade, but Really, really nice move. ARGT definitely looks good. AEVA, nice job with a double inside day off the 200. Yeah, look at this thing. FLNC, they might have themselves a nice day today with the way VST's gapping up and the way, Oklow's gapping up. We'll see if it wants to stick around. Will Dan set up? Yeah, maybe a cup and a handle. Maybe. Has to take out a prior day high to get going. Not bad. Not extended. It's made a huge linear move up before. So BLD, problem really with BLD, which by the way I like, is just that it's in the home building sector, like you mentioned, and that sector has kind of sucked. Although I did notice there was a big bid going into those stocks yesterday. I did re-enter Tesla. I own it already. I bought it yesterday when it reclaimed the support gap. I bought it 2 days ago, and then I had to get rid of it because of the crappy close. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I bought this here on the support gap, right? And then using low of day stop. Then the next day, you had this little slight gap up, and then it just held. And then when it started to roll over end of day, I just got rid of it. Good decision because it ended up, being even weaker in the morning, and I would have gotten stopped out anyway. Instead, I took a flat trade instead of a loss, and then I just rebought it back when it remounted the support gap with the stop at low, and that was it. And then it actually acted well all day, and now I'm in a gap up. So I didn't take a loss on it, and now I'm sitting in the win I was hoping to at least be able to have, and hopefully this thing's got a few days of strength in it, reclaims the 50 days so I can add some more. I almost did consider treating this as a higher low setup. Whoops. And potentially adding some more today over prior day high. We'll see. How many trades a week do I do on average? Oh, I don't know. Look, my stats sometimes get aggregated. Like if I add to a trade, right? Like if I were to add more Tesla today, I technically consider that another trade. And then if I add to it again, it'll be another trade. But it'll just get aggregated to the same trade that I have when I go to sell it, as long as I maintain an open position from my first buy. So I could end up taking like 2 more trades, like let's say 1 more trade on Tesla today. And I'll have done 2, like a trade on Tesla yesterday and a trade on Tesla today, but it'll still get aggregated as 1. So like my stats for last year, we'll say something like 230, 40 trades, but I really took more than that because there are times that I pyramid into a winner or I pyramid into a short. So I do feel like I take more trades than, what's actually being shown. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like 1 a day, maybe, at least on average, 2. I don't know. Just depends the day of the week. Right? Like last Friday, I bought Amazon, Reddit, and A-Lab. Right? So I bought Amazon right here, got stopped out. I bought A-Lab, which worked for a day, and then I got stopped out on Monday. And then I bought Reddit, which I'm still sitting in. So, there are days where I take 3. And I almost took 5 that day. I almost also bought SanDisk. And let me tell you, this is the biggest regret I do have, not buying SanDisk. So, and FSLR. Right in there. So, yeah, there are days where it's like I want to get a little trigger happy. Well, gold looks like it might want to keep going. I own NEM. I almost bought AEM yesterday because it was a setup. I just wasn't really going to take this. Like I thought this looked pretty good here, like this. Right? I thought that looked pretty good and it pushed out yesterday. Now we get a little bit of an inside day, then, maybe we can treat this as a flat-based breakout if we get like a little bit of an inside day. But it doesn't look like that's what wants to happen with gold going up. We'll see. I don't know that both are quote unquote setting up again because silver looks super sloppy, but yeah, it might be. Yeah, it's maybe a little loose. What ATR extension is this? No, it's not actually. It's less than 4%. It's ATR from the 50, and then just a nice little multi-day consolidation here. I mean, I don't think that it's quote unquote perfect, but what is the trading book you recommend to read? Secrets to Profiting in Bull and Bear Markets by Stan Weinstein, the Mark Minervini collection, How to Make Money in Stocks by Bill O'Neill, um, Trading in the Zone, um, the book by Marcel Link, High Probability Trading. I mean, dude, there's so many good books. I mean, there's so many good books. But then you just read a couple of books and then you start applying yourself, right? Like nothing is and I mean absolutely nothing is going to beat you sitting in front of the screens, seeing how things move, developing a plan for how you get in, understanding how to, develop your situational awareness, what kind of environment do certain setups work in, how do you find the setups that you like to trade, how do you scan the market, how do you size into something properly? How do you trim something? How do you trail something? They don't really teach you that in those books. So, there's a lot of work to do. Books are cute, right? It's like saying, how do you become, Chef Gordon Ramsay? Is it by going to Barnes and Noble and picking up a book or getting your ass in the kitchen and stop chopping up garlic and onions? You know what I mean? You got to get your ass in the kitchen and start, reducing some wine and, warming up some pot. Like you got to just get to work, man. So books are good, but books might give you a slight little foundation the same way a cookbook might give you a slight little foundation. But at some point, you got to get to work. OUST, I've been watching this one kind of come back up. I wouldn't be a buyer of this one. Right? Again, you're up 30% in about 6 sessions. I wouldn't be a buyer on like session number 7. Again, that's not to say it can't keep going because shit can keep going, but where's the tightness? I'm a little strict on it. IPOs, maybe not as much. I don't normally trade IPOs though, but I'm normally fairly strict on not buying stocks more than 4 times. I mean, I'll go like 4.5. Maybe if it's a mid cap, you could get away with 5. But yeah, I try to really do my best to never buy anything extended. How long of a basing period do you look for in high type flags? That's a great question, and it has more so to do with the initial leg, right? Than it does with anything. If all it did was go up 4 days, it might just need 4 or 5 days of sideways. If it just went up 100%, it might need 7 weeks. There's a difference. So that's kind of what you normally like to think about. The length of the high type flag, in terms of time that's needed, it has a lot to do with the initial momentum burst up. Yeah, I don't love the action in Rivian yesterday, and this is just getting a little too choppy here for my own liking. For me, it was Ford, which I missed because of the subtle gap up. Unfortunately, should have pulled the trigger, but it'd have been a whole lot easier if it didn't gap up and just traded through my pivot. And then Tesla. Those are the 2 I care about. AEVA looks interesting. Yeah, as long as it's hanging out above the 200, we are good to go. Thoughts on UEC? Probably gapping up today, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I avoid this. Again, group is fine, but are you really coming in to buy a stock on the 6th, 7th green day in a row after it's made a 30% move? The answer for me is always no, right? I like to buy something, reclaiming a key moving average after some tightness, right? There's just nothing there. Yeah, BW was meant to be bought yesterday. If you didn't buy BW yesterday, then it's gone, right? Your job was to buy this at least through 660. How would you have traded iron Okay, so I wouldn't have traded iron. I wouldn't have. I actually shorted iron at the 50-day. Um, NBIS, I also wouldn't have traded NBIS. It's got a little low cheat setup that it's still working on. And Rocket had a good setup a few days ago, right here. Monday the 5th. Powell cup and handle. I mean, I don't know if I'd. Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe a cup and handle. Has a low cheat setup that it's working with. Above 370, building some higher lows on the handle. Not bad. Not bad. No, he's got it for the people in the Discord. Why don't I like you? No, I like you a lot, Gavin. I think you're a good dude. No, I'm kidding. I know it's not what you meant. This is just potentially it breaking out of a stage 1 base. I think this looks pretty interesting. It's just got to take out a prior day high. Problem is, why I don't like you? This price action starting to suck a little bit, right? It's got to get going at some point, right? It's got to get going. High here, 46.80. High here, 46.80. So 46.80. Do I think money's leaving from semis? Not really. Like KLAC, I mean, this is just digesting. LRCX, this is just digesting. TSM after and this just gapped right back up. TSM after its massive move, this is just digesting. There are certain semis where you'd say yes. AMD, NVIDIA, ALAB, CRDO, those have kind of sucked recently, but yeah, Bros, another interesting looking name. Food stocks have been acting better. Yeah, I don't like that price action in LITE at all. My opinion on shorting Disney, probably not. Yeah, no. I mean, and it's back above. It just got back above the 200. It might be buyable just over prior day high. It could be a scenario where it just rips right first thing in the morning, and then waiting for a 5-minute opening range break would put you in a little too high. What did I do for money before trading? Oh boy, you don't know my story, huh? I started trading immediately once I got home from prison. So I got caught with some marijuana. For anybody who isn't familiar with my story, what did I do for money? Yeah, that's my story. Good times, good times. Funny how life changes, man. Baba maybe just back over this little pivot and back above the 50 simple moving average. Has to get above this pivot though. Yesterday, massive 5% update. Today, you get the gap down. Campo, appreciate that. The Discord's 100 times better than a book. It's funny because there are people who ask, and I tell them all the time, right? Like, again, it's one thing to read a book. It's one thing to, watch a chef in the kitchen. And if there's one thing that I do is I'm very, very consistent at the very least with showing up, and then just not, I don't go on till I do my job every night. I know where I want to be during the day, and I trade very minimal, right? Those are things that people could definitely learn and pick up on. And I size properly. So I appreciate that, man. And thank you for being there, of course. AEVA looks great, guys. It looks perfectly fine. Nope. Is there a time of day when you stop looking for entries? Look, there's actually a lot of validity to taking entries at the end of the day when they're closing near the upper half of their range. Tons. Wouldn't I like to write a book, man? It's just time consuming. I'm in the middle of, I've got a ton of people that I talk to all day long, trading related, and just in the Discord alone. And then, I take it a step further and I'm helping my wife plan a wedding, out of the country. So that's, time consuming. And it's just, I got two dogs. I try to take care of my health as best as I can. I mean, it's just so I don't even know when the hell I'd have time to write a book. So it just seems impossible. My time is just so stretched already. TMDX looks decent, but I don't know that I would take it here. I like how this is basing. I really do. No, nobody has mentioned open, and it's just likely that this thing moves with it'll move with Rocket, Lending Club, Zillow, etc. That's kind of my expectation. Although I don't like quantum, yeah, I agree. Some of them are finally starting to base out again, at least a bottoming base. And you've got Rigetti, but you're still underneath the 50. You got UBT, but you're still underneath the 50. You've got IONQ, but it just, some of these names just aren't really showing. Like, do I really want to try to own the bottom on something, or do I rather focus on names that are hanging out near, highs and surfing their key moving averages? What do you do when you get traction for 1-2 days in your positions and all of a sudden there's a market sell-off? I at least move my stops to break even so I don't take a loss. Nah, FCell is not really a name I'm going to be focused on. No, there's just this is just far too shitty of a stock, right? This thing hasn't traded well for a really long time. It would only get my attention like way, 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 way down the road. I'm trading with an 8-figure portfolio, Will. It's been that size for a couple years. In Baidu since 1224, man. Did you get long at 120? Like, where did you get long? 1224. Holy shit, you bought this thing perfectly, dude. Oh, 24. Oh, man, you even held through this gap down, then ramp. Yeah, and you've sold a third. I would just continue to trail, on like the 10-day. How long should something be? I mean, like when you look at, for instance, IONQ, this hasn't been basing long enough. I would say like once you get 7-8 months out, then overhead supply starts to matter a whole lot less. CoreWeave, there's no setup. Would you rather take CoreWeave or would you rather take NBIS? Would you rather do this chart or would you rather do this chart, considering they're basically the same thing? What do I think about hoods below the 50 simple moving average? And there's nothing to think about until, you can get going above that. Drendel gaps, they basically just highlight the spots where there's open gaps in the chart. If you gap down, it's an unfilled resistance gap. If it's a gap up, it's a potential support gap. So those are spots to watch as price approaches those areas. SYM for the robotics theme, probably one of the better ones if I had to say so myself. Again, similar story. Where's the tightness for now? I don't see it just yet. You see a reoccurring pattern where technical setup formations often precede significant catalyst. Yeah, I mean, I don't really even think about that too much. First thing I think about when I'm doing like my nightly homework is what groups are getting money, right? Where's money going? Are there clean technical setups within that group? And then how would I get involved if there are clean technical setups? And then what do I need to see from the market at the time when I'm going to get involved? And am I looking at pullbacks into ascending moving averages? Am I looking at higher low setups? Am I looking at, breakouts? Depends. It really just depends, right? I like to think about group first. That's the most important part in the market to me. Groups and themes are by far the most important factor. right? Oklo gapping up, it's really out of no clean setup. So like, how does one buy it today when there was no? It was just straight up off the lows, and then you get a gap up, and you're really going to show up and buy it 62% higher in 7 days off the lows? I don't think so. Yeah, a little funky price action for FSLY. Fox, much love, dude. And good having you there. And it's nice to see that your trading's definitely starting to improve too. I see you finding better stocks. You're looking at better stuff. And you know what? I do agree too. Even for people who aren't trading a big account or even really trading full time, I really do think it's the best way to learn in real time, right? Which a lot of people don't do. A lot of people will show you a static chart after it's happened and been like, I would have bought there, and then expect you to know how to do that in real time when shit's just moving like crazy, right? And that's really, really hard to do, but it's really easy for the person teaching you because it's a static chart, right? It's already happened, right? Like, of course, I could look at a chart and then and tell you what to do after it's already happened. But doing it in real time, it's a whole different beast. But yeah, it just makes it a whole lot different. Teaching somebody in real time versus teaching somebody after the chart's already moved. You got stopped out of nearly everything, Scotland. You were trying a number of sectors, so market is speaking to me. It's easier to make money in waves than finding needle in the haystack. Yeah, I agree. And this is kind of one of those things where that Mark Minervini concept of progressive exposure makes tons of sense, because when the market hits you with dozens and dozens of setups over like a 10 or 12-day span, and that allows you to like get yourself into 6, 7, 8 names, and then the market goes on like a really nice run, but it gives you like this little pocket window to like get involved in quite a few names. That's where like that comes in handy, because like looking for that needle in the haystack where a lot of shit looks like CRS yesterday or LITE or even Palantir dropping below the 50 and Nvidia, and you're just looking for like the two rocket stocks or the two memory names, right? Like if it's not SNDK and it's not MU and you tried STX or WDC, it's like that just shows you how difficult of an environment we're in. Apparently, these stocks have been moving together this entire time, but then this name will round trip the move, but SNDK will hang out near highs. Realize how like difficult of an environment that is when even its own group is like bifurcated, right? It's like WDC is supposed to literally be the SNDK spinoff, and it's going nowhere here as a failed breakout. So, yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. SEI looks interesting. I will say this: the energy group to me, and I know this is supposed to be solar related, so probably a little bit more difficult. Um, Probably a little bit more difficult. But yesterday, right, my XOM, I almost couldn't believe my eyes. Now, the one thing I'll say about XOM is it was already in an uptrend prior to the Venezuela news. And then all of a sudden you got this nasty move down because you had probably a lot of people chasing in. But then yesterday, energy stocks woke up in a big way. And my thinking is crude oil could be bottoming. I think that's possible. And, oil and gas stocks could be the next group to move, but we'll see what happens. No, I think, so you'll just have a clean technical setup. Like there will be people, right? You'll look at Ford. You'll be like, okay, this is a nice setup, but I don't like to buy the open because it's far too volatile. There will be people out there who will see this breakout. They'll literally buy the close and they'll just set their stop to low of day. So they'll literally be buying like the actual closing print, and they'll just set their stop at call it 3.5%, and then just size in properly for a possible 3.5% loss. and you're like, this is a breakout. I want to own a breakout. And that's it. And you'll literally just buy the close. I prefer not to. I prefer to buy it as it's starting to break out, which would have been, really over this little inside days high, but call it over, 1380 would have been good to go. Would have been good to go. IONQ's been respecting the 200 simple moving average since 2024. Yeah, it sure has. One of the things about that then would be, where's your entry? If you've been noticing that it's respecting the 200 since 2024, where's the entry? Wouldn't your entry be on Friday the 2nd? Or does it feel like it's into the declining 50 day? That's $1 million question. I think of progressive exposure in terms of, I won't go and get a second, a third, and a fourth position in my portfolio if I can't gain traction in the first. And if I get stopped out of the first, that's fine. And then you start back at square one. And then if you can't gain traction on that first one again and you get stopped out, I start back on square one, meaning I'm still trying to get into my first. And by the time I take my third and my fourth and my fifth loss in a row, I don't take 10% positions anymore. I go down to 5, because it's not my entry tactics that don't work. And it's not my scanning that doesn't work. It's the market environment that's not being friendly. And so I'll take initial setup. And if it works, I go for another. And if that works, I go for another. And if that works, I go for another. And I try to figure out, what group is this working in? And I will get myself involved based on setups that are in a similar group, have a clear technical setup, have good earnings and sales. And I'm using progressive exposure, meaning I'm getting more and more of my money to work as the market is being friendly and giving me more setups to trade. I don't just go from 0% invested to 50% invested just because, right? The market will have had to have pulled a 10% position out of me, given me some buffer, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. The only instance that I will go from 0% to like 30, 35, 40% invested is on a follow-through day. But a follow-through day only occurs after a market correction, which we really haven't had, right? So that there's a key differentiator there as to when I'll get aggressive. The best time to buy stocks is after a market has had a correction. And, that's about the only other time. Otherwise, I'm constantly using progressive exposure to get myself involved into the market. If I can't gain traction on my prior positions, why am I if I'm just sitting in 2-3 red names, why am I putting on another stock, right? That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So that's kind of how I think about it. How much inspiration did I take from Kulamagi? I took a bunch of inspiration from him. I took a bunch of inspiration from Mark Minervini, Dan Zanger, Pat Walker, Gil Morales, Pradeep. I took a lot of inspiration from everybody. I just listened to what they taught. I mean, even Scotland, who just, commented earlier, I learned the fishhook setup from him, right? There's always something, from Amit Rai, I learned the high volume close setup, right? From Pradeep, I learned the EP. And the first person I ever heard talk about it was Christian, because Christian learned it from Pradeep, right? From Mark, I learned progressive exposure and the volatility contraction pattern. From Pat Walker, I learned a flat base breakout, right? From Dan Zanger, I learned all about momentum stocks. So, and again, from Pradeep, I learned momentum bursts. So it's like, you're always just kind of, and then you have to go through a few bull and bear cycles to like make sense of everything you just learned, because it's like a concept that like you've learned, but you haven't been able to apply it during this environment, right? There are certain environments, certain earning seasons where you think you're going to get a bunch of earnings gap ups, and some people will classify them as EPs, which they're not, right? They're just earnings gap ups. But a lot of people think you're going to get that kind of setup, and you just don't. So yeah, it's you got to still go through some bull and bear cycles, and then you got to take what you've learned from people who are more skilled than you in whatever it might be, right? Like, I didn't know a fishhook setup, so I was like, Scotland, okay, this makes sense, and he's teaching it, and it's awesome, and it works. And how do I apply that to my trading? What environment does that work in? On what stocks does that work on, right? And normally it'll be similar. It'll be on stocks that have gapped up. They won't just go straight from there as like a day two. they'll kind of set back up and then they'll start to turn back around and curl back around. And then that's kind of when he's looking for his entry. So, AKA the fish hook. So yeah, you're always just trying to learn something from another person. Yeah, be aware that Ariel does a live stream. Yeah, I do a lot of this, but during actual market hours, where I'm of course focused on my trading, but then as we're talking about stocks amongst the group, right? I'm live streaming as well. DOCN. When I trail, is it always the 10 simple moving average? This one actually looks pretty good. I would hope for another little down day and then a higher low setup. I don't always trail on the 10. If a stock acts really well and then the 20 catches up, beyond my average, I'll then be using the 20. And then as the stock continues to build out, right? Like a good example where I recently used the 50 was ARC, right? Where I bought this thing way down here. And then as it started to build out after this really nice push, I was using the 50. So this little pullback didn't bother me because I was already trimmed. And then this was a higher low. And then this was a higher low. And I was using the 50, right? And ultimately, I ended up getting stopped out below the 50. So, yeah, there are instances where I will trail on the 50, and it's ultimately on what price is doing. I don't know that AVGO is a good short just yet. If you wanted to take it, yesterday looked like a pretty decent day. But I personally prefer these pushes into declining moving averages / flattening 50, right? Like a few days ago would have been even better. Friday the 2nd, even better. No, I didn't mention a firm. I think I think a firm is fine. I thought the better entry occurred a few days ago. I think it's okay here. I don't think that it's great. Yeah, metals and mining are definitely an awesome sector. Oil and gas is starting to come around. So yeah, IWM's definitely a leading theme. There's actually a lot of strong groups, right? Retail apparel's been very strong. You tried both WDC and STX. That just goes to show you how tough of an environment it is, right? If you didn't buy SNDK or you didn't buy MU and you tried to buy the other two, they just didn't work, right? I mean, this market kind of sucks at the moment, despite it going up. It's very selective, is what I should say. It doesn't suck, right? Like if you had bought BE, which I almost did 2 days ago, right? This would be an awesome trade. I almost bought it as it was going back through the 50 because the prior 2 days paused right underneath. How do I trade around PEG, so power earnings gaps, or the way I like to do them is high volume closes or the fish hook from Scotland. Those are really the only two. CRML was perfect yesterday. No, I didn't short it, unfortunately. Right into the top of the resistance gap. Uppercut the resistance gap and then failed. I am hopeful for a little bit of a push today so I can short it. You're in CCJ thinking of taking your first trims? You're in from 98? Oh, man, just beautiful. Oh, you're in from here, 98. Oh, wow. Yeah, I personally, I mean, I don't want to tell you exactly what to do, but I would be. Trim into left side supply. Now, what you actually want is you want this thing to go sideways here. You want it to build its cup, and now you'll build a little handle, and then you get going again. So anyway, guys, much love, fun day, tons of questions. I will see you guys on Monday morning. Today is Friday already. Wow, what a fast week. And I will see you guys Monday. Hopefully you guys have an awesome weekend. Trade them safely today. We'll talk to you guys soon. G-Fun, I'll see you in the room, brother. Yep, have a great weekend, guys.